Welcome to episode 3 of Football Kentron. I am your host, Aram, and I am joined by, of course, Charens and Armen. And today we are going to be talking about something that happened. You may have heard of it, you may have not, but Armenia won the UEFA Nations League group. We're going to talk all about
Group
how
winners.
group winners. We are group winners. We can actually say that now. We're going to talk about the match against Macedonia. We're going to be talking about what this means for Armenia's future and a little bit of the stuff in between that made everything possible. So let's start up with the lead up to the game. Armenia had defeated Georgia. We got all 3 points. It was one of the most intense games I have ever seen in my entire life, and I'm sure my co-hosts can attest to that.
Yep.
But Sargis Adamian scored that winner. We went crazy, and then we're like, one more to go. But then we wake up in the morning, or morning for me, afternoon, evening for you lot, and we get some news. Oddman, what kind of news did we get?
Not good. Not good. But it's kind of sad that we kind of got used to that. But the great thing is how we overcome those. What are the news? Okay, Adamian, we were talking about him. The hero, the big hero, Sako Adamian. He got COVID. They're like, wah, wah.
Yep.
And he was not the only one. There were also Kevor Kazarian, the other goal scorer, the first goal, beautiful goal against Georgia. And in my opinion, the most important after Sako, Andre Çalışır, he was also out with COVID. 3 starters from the last game out with COVID. So we had to deal with that.
Yeah, and on top of that, we already knew we know Mkhitaryan. He was in self-isolation because of his club didn't let him go, didn't want to take the chance and release him. Probably a good call at this point because I'm pretty sure the entire squad has COVID at this point.
Yeah.
Bayramyan, who had a minor injury, so he didn't join the team. Babayan, before the first game, COVID. He got it. He was out. Briasco Balakyan, Huracan didn't let him go. Probably the right decision again, if we're looking at it. We lost both our backup goalkeepers. So at this point, we're like a good 10 people in our squad gone.
And we had to deal with that like all of a sudden, especially Adamian, Ghazarian, and Çalışır. That was like, it's always so crucial times that we have to deal with issues.
Yeah, and we did because if we look at the scenarios that we have, it wasn't looking like it was going to be in our favor much. But Chadens, break down the scenarios for us. Before this match, we knew we had all these people gone. We had injuries, we had COVID, we had this, we had that. But what did we need to do in this match in order to top the group?
It was a definite win. That's what we needed. And the win would just get us the 3 points and top of the group, of course. The guarantee second place would be with a draw, which we still wouldn't want that. And of course, the loss is second place if Georgia won with less than 3 goals, or draw or a loss, which we wouldn't rely on any other team. Of course, it's a game of football, and you don't know what happens. So what we needed was a win with all the situation that we had.
Yes, and fortunately for us, after the fact, of course, we didn't look at the scores during the games. I think at halftime we looked, but Georgia and Estonia ended up drawing 0-0. So either way, Armenia at minimum was going to get second place. But we were looking forward now, and we're thinking, what kind of lineup is Caparros going to put out? We had originally all had different ideas, different speculations. I thought he would switch back to the 4-2-3-1. We had Sako Adamian in form. He was going to start up top. It was going to be great. But we were met with a far different lineup. So let's start by going through it. So Caparros decided to go with the 4-4-2 that we saw in the Georgia game. So at this point, we all knew as soon as we saw the formation, didn't even have to see the personnel. We knew it was going to be a bunker down, defense, counterattack game. That's it. We knew we were going to have at most 40% of possession and we were just going to rely on our players getting the job done. Armen, walk us through the front half of the line.
Making his debut, there was Hagop Hagopian, and we weren't sure which Hagopian it was before the game, right? Because the official national team account on the internet uploaded Hagopian, okay, but without any initials, and we were speculating over whether it was Hagop or was it Robert. Turns out it was Hagop Hagopian, a guy which I love how he plays. We were talking about him too during the last podcast. So he made his debut as kind of a old school left midfielder, and he was given more defensive roles rather than attack, but he did both. He was given freedom too. He was just great. I mean, I loved his performance. I honestly was more inclined to like him because I like how he plays naturally. But this game was proof of that. He was flair pass, very solid performance for a debut. Then on the right side of the midfield, there was Tigran Parsekian, very solid as always. What a group stage! What a season for Tico. At 10, we had Arshak Gorian returning to the starting lineup. We knew he was ready. Caparros saw it too, and as always, he didn't disappoint. A great game, another great game for this kid, Arshak Gorian. Remember his name. He's just getting started, but he's gonna go a long way for us. And last but not least, our sole striker, man of the box, Sasha, Alexander Karapetyan. I don't know why they call him Sasha, but it's working for him. He's scoring, he's performing. I love this guy. I honestly love our Armenian McGregor.
Yes, and that front line was set up to do a specific job, and that's something we'll get into a little bit deeper. The defensive midfield saw the pairing of Grigorian and Udo. This was the same pair that started the match against Georgia. Udo had a very solid performance in that game. We really liked how he played. We think he did a fantastic job, and he was going to have a similar role in this game. Grigorian has been...
what a lion.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that a lot of people tend to complain about because I think it's an easy spot to point out a weakness in our squad. But his performances throughout this campaign have been wonderful. But let's take a look at the back line, the changed back line. Chadens, walk us through it.
We specifically had Charles here changing for Voskanyan due to the COVID. We also had Camo for Hovhannisyan.
Yes. They're both Hovhannisyan last name, so it gets confusing.
Yeah, it gets confusing.
So many
Hovhannisyans.
To be honest, I got confused as well at the start. Yeah. To be honest, though, I was actually expecting no complaints here, but I was expecting Bichakcan to start. But I'm like you guys said, I'm still happy with Korean as well. He's been doing well. But the changes due to COVID were, I think, fine. Specifically, the defense, we actually kept the clean sheet, which was something that I specifically mentioned before. And Aram, you also mentioned how our defense has become stronger.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to coaching, because if you ask any person that watches Armenia, and if you say the name Voskanyan, I think every single person would literally like cringe. I think they would. I'm very positive every single person that saw this starting 11, their eyes automatically went straight first to Voskanyan because they're thinking, oh my God, please no, not now, not this match. And then secondly, it probably went to Hakopian and said, who is this guy? So there was a lot of personnel changes, but not a lot of stylistic changes.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, we think the 4-4-2 was kept likely because of the lack of personnel. I think if Joaquin Caparros had other players that were healthy, we would see a slightly altered lineup. I think more of a 4-2-3-1. We wouldn't see this false nine situation that Cordian was playing, who is kind of like an interchange between a 10 and a false nine, and he had a lot of freedom to move around. But the game plan was very clear. It was sit back and counterattack when the spaces open up. Hakopian, who made his debut, plays naturally as a left wing back for his club side, Urartu in Armenia. So one thing that was probably very clear just from looking at the team sheet was that he wasn't going to really be present in the attack, and rather that would be Udo or Wobemar in the second half, who would push up into those spaces. Korian, as we mentioned, was the false nine. His job was literally to just run. That's all he had to do. Run around and hound the defense, put pressure, and try to win the ball back. So,
yeah,
we
reminds me of Firmino, actually, in the 4-3-3 system. Just quickly, just pressuring as much as possible.
Yeah, then that's exactly what he had to do, and he did a wonderful job. I'm sure he probably wouldn't have been that happy with his performance. He wants to score, he wants to assist, but the Joaquin Caparros way, as we've learned in this Nations League, is team above any individual. And speaking of teams,
agree.
We look at the Macedonia lineup. They had as many missing starters as we did. Their misses included the captain, Goran Pandev, who scored that crucial goal against Georgia, which saw them qualify for the Euros. They were missing Elmas, Alioski, their starting goalkeeper, Nosterovski. So they had a ton of players out as well, and they came out with a 5 at the back formation. So we knew that this was going to be a game where they were going to try to fill the spaces. They were going to try to suffocate us when we had possession. And that's essentially what they did. So the match kind of started very similar to how Georgia was. We saw a lot of possession from Macedonia in about the first 20 minutes, but they weren't really able to make any clear chances other than a couple shots from very long range. I'm talking 40 yards out or so. There were pop shots from free kicks and whatnot. But the first chance of the game fell to Alexander Karapetyan. Armen, what happened there?
Yeah, well, it was kind of an open game, even though, as you said, Macedonia was holding mostly possession for themselves. They were trying not to make mistakes after the loss of so many starters. They lost even more starters and more important ones than we were missing. So they kind of were trying to keep the ball so they wouldn't make mistakes. But luckily enough for us, they did. Our boys, even with all the issues we had to deal with, they pressed the Macedonians off the ball. They stole the ball several times, and they got shots. They created chances. As it was so important in the last game against Georgia, they did the same this time as well. So a ball goes right to Karapetyan, right to Sashita, and the guy shots a very strong and direct shot onto the goal. Unluckily, sadly, Siskovsky was the goalkeeper this time, and he made the save. It was a very hard save, and I was already screaming that goal. So yeah, it was a tough moment.
Yeah, and so that kind of just led to Armenia having more possession throughout the first half.
Yeah, you open up.
Creating more chances. Macedonia kept trying to create the spaces and keep the spaces tight, rather. And they forced a couple of great saves from Yurchenko in that first half from free kicks. But overall, the first half was kind of dull. Chadens, would you say that Macedonia looked like their whole game plan was to just play out for a draw?
I wouldn't be sure what they were planning, but I would definitely say that it was to play. They wanted to play, and they knew what we had at stake. So for them, it was a strategy where they would focus on just consistently trying to attempt whatever they could, which actually that's what they did in the first half. That's why they had more chances. Statistically, you would get scared because of that, but I think we held them off well.
Yeah, I think they created 3 more shots than we did in that first half, but Armenia had both teams rather had 2 shots on target. So it just goes to show you that, again, similar storyline to Georgia. They had all the possession. They created a lot of shots, but there wasn't any meaningful shots because they weren't given the space and opportunity to play down the middle like how they want to. So halftime comes along. We're sitting here wondering, okay, wasn't a bad half, wasn't a good half. We had an opportunity. We know deep down, one more opportunity like that, and we're going to put it away. We could score the goal. I wasn't sure if Caparros was going to make any changes at halftime, but lo and behold, in the beginning of the second half, we saw a double change. This is the first time Caparros has actually done this, I believe. He brought on Wabemar Angulo for Udo. Wabemar being more of an attacking-minded center mid, he would help the press. He would help push up and open more spaces. And then, in my opinion, what was the more puzzling substitution was taking off our forward Karapetyan for Vahan Bichakcan, which I think we can all say we are ecstatic to have Vahan on for 45 minutes. That move saw Tico move up to the striker, and we didn't necessarily have a formation change, but Vahan was on the right wing where Tico was, or the spaces that Tico occupied, and Korian was still in that false 9 until he was subbed off later. So the second half starts. Armenia's looking a lot better, creating a lot more chances. Artak Grigorian was winning the ball in the midfield. Great recovery, great distribution. Suddenly, we look like we have control over this game for the first time. And before we knew it, Armenia were up 1-0. Armen, walk us through how that goal happened.
The goal was, as we were talking about, all about pressing. Pressing leads to counterattacks. Counterattacks lead to goals. Well, that's what happened. We were talking about game plan. We were more hungry, and that hunger was what led their defense, the Macedonian defense, to lose the ball. So this right back, he let go out of the play. He lost the ball. He was kind of Vahan grabbed it. Camo. He throws it to Tico, right? Then Tico hits it back to Camo. So somehow he placed the ball to Vahan. Vahan, the substitute. I mean, Vahan, it wasn't just this once. Vahan created chances all over the second half. So this time he slides it to Hampatsumian. We're going to talk about another filtered pass from Vahan later on. But this one was to Hovo on the right. Hovo was running all match long. I don't know how Hovo keeps fit. He always finds a run. He never gets tired. And
I think right before this goal happened, I want to say 2-3 minutes before, in our group message, you had messaged saying Hovo looks tired. That's I remember saying this, and then I said,
I remember now.
I said I don't care if he's tired, he has to push.
And he did.
And he did.
Wow.
Push. Yeah, and he got the ball. Obviously, Vahan gave a fantastic through ball. Hovo took a bit of a wonky, poor touch, honestly. So it took him a little wide. Yeah, he's a right back. I know you don't really. He probably got a little too excited, and he kind of just chipped the ball. Right? It was kind of like I don't know if this is a cross. I don't know if this is a shot.
Whatever happens, happens.
Whatever happens, and literally everyone missed it. Like
that's literally what happened. 3 players just missed it.
How not to love Hovo? I mean, he kept pushing.
Yeah, and he did it. He got that ball over. I think one of the defenders flung himself, got a boot on it, but it didn't change the direction. It just popped it over the second defender who was sliding in to try to block it on the goal line, and it just goes into the side netting. Boom. Armenia's up 1-0.
It's like it was meant to be.
That's I would hate to phrase it that way, but because we never ever have luck like that. But it
I don't
literally
know.
looked like it was meant to be because we're creating all these chances, and the next one that we're going to talk about is a great example of this. Is like the stuff that should be going in was just not.
Come on.
Yeah, there was like a poor touch or something here and there, or a bad decision, and the one time it was just left to chance that
Yeah.
Hobo just kind of said, screw this, I'm just gonna hit it this
And
way.
then we missed the easy one. We missed the easy one.
Yeah, we did. Chadens, talk us through the chance that we had immediately after scoring to make it 2-0. What happened there?
Oh, went quite unexpected, really. Vahan, he slipped it to Kamo with a nice, brilliant pass, and it just went through the two central defenders, and Kamo continued by taking the touch, and he tried to get it through the goalkeeper's legs, but he actually saved it. So that 2-0 just went away.
Yeah, it was, and that was the opportunity. And I think even the commentator
It slipped from our fingers.
It did slip from our fingers. And then I remember thinking one of two things. On like one, why is that not Tico? Why is Kamo from left back all the way up there right now? And then two, I remember thinking, oh, this is it. Like they're gonna score right now. They're gonna tie it up. We're gonna get second place. We're gonna be mad. But it's not quite how the story went. Vahan, I could say comfortably, continued to control the match. He pulled all the strings when he came on in that second half, and he put on a fantastic performance. I think one thing we can zone in on was like how confident this kid is on the ball and how easily he turns and fakes out multiple defenders simultaneously and relieves pressure with a simple pass. Very, very similarly to Hakopian, actually, while he was on the pitch during the game, he also genuinely surprised me with how well he was on the ball. I looked at Hakopian and I thought, there's no way you're telling me this guy is this calm, confident, composed. I think he even did something crazy, like he did like a back heel pass at one point.
Yeah.
I think he did a roulette spin at one point. And I'm like, you're telling me, like, there's no way this kid plays in the Armenian Premier League. Like, he looked so good out there. And I think he's a player that if any scout was watching that match, he would be one of the players that got picked out from that game because he looked so confident on the ball. But back to Vahan, he showed his passing range. He showed how good his vision was, his ball control, his ball retention, his ability to create space. I think in the limited amount of game time he's had in this Nations League, he has really shown what he's about. And I think he's giving the rest of the team a run for their money because clearly Caparros doesn't see him as a 10. Caparros sees him as a false 9 or a right winger. So he's going to have competition with Korian, Adamian, Barserian. 3 players that are probably going to start almost every single game if they're fit, right?
Yeah, but they're all versatile. They can all work several positions.
Exactly, and that's what Caparros likes, right? That's exactly why we saw the starting lineup we did. That's exactly why Hakopian started. If it was us, any of us, we would have put Vahan on that left side for sure. No doubt about it. But Caparros likes players that can play in multiple positions, that can play multiple roles. So if he needs to make any sort of adjustments in the game, those adjustments get made. And they get done, and it gets done well. And that's, of course, something we'll get into when we talk a little bit more about the manager later. But the last 8 or so minutes of the match, Chadens, Macedonia was piling on the pressure.
Well, yeah, they had to score. So they continued on. They continued pushing and pushing and pushing. Of course, to, like you mentioned before, to get a draw. but they definitely did not do that. And we had Vahan getting the last second of the match, getting a nice chance. It was a single counterattack, but the two defenders caught up to him, and the shot just went wide. So nothing
So
major,
close.
but something.
Yeah, and so that's what we're talking about. Even though I think there was 2 more substitutions made, 2 more defenders came on. Midfielder was taken off for a center back, and left back was thrown in. We had a very, very defensive-minded team, and then Vahan, basically. That was it. That was literally what was left. And even though that was the case in the last 15 minutes of the match, we still created several chances, purely on counterattack and the press. But lo and behold, after 4 minutes of stoppage time and an extra minute that the ref added on, finally the whistle is blown. Armenia win 1-0. Armenia have officially topped their group in the UEFA Nations League. Let's get a round of applause. I couldn't believe it. I know Armin couldn't believe it. Chadens, I know you couldn't believe it. Theo, who's not with us today, but you'll hear a little bit from him later, he couldn't believe it. For the first time in our lives, we saw Armenia top a competitive group.
I still can't believe it.
How did that feel at that moment when the ref blew the whistle?
Well, I still can't believe it, Adam. So that's how it feels. I don't know, man. It's so surreal. The way Caparros is handling all this team. I mean, he is this guy, this Spaniard who comes to a completely random nation for him, right? He is turning our luck around. I mean, he's giving the luck of the Armenian a whole new meaning. In
Is that even a phrase?
the luck of the Armenian? Yeah. In Armenian it is.
We stole it from the Irish right after they cheated us out of the win in Euro 2012 qualifiers.
Exactly. Yeah, but exactly on the contrary, as they mean it, as the Irish mean it, but not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Going back to Vahan, I mean, I wanted to pitch in on Vahan. This kid, wow. Let me wrap Vahan and put him in a 3-player trident, right? Hagopian, Vahan, and Korean. Those 3 kids, they're young and so very talented. They were discovered by Caparros basically this last season, and during this month to the double game, it was so good. They were so great, the 3 of them, talented, and most of all, their personality. They don't feel nervous, even if no matter the situation. We needed that for so long, and now we got it with this 3 kids. I'm so happy about the future. So happy.
Yeah, and we look at the squad that we had. If you look at all of the 3 squads that were called up for the 6 match days, drastically different personnel. And Chadens, as a coach yourself, if you're having or finding yourself missing players here and there, but you're still able to pull off a result, how is that psychologically for a manager? How does a manager do that? How does a manager handle missing so many key players but still somehow figuring it out?
I think it's a psychological aspect, but at the main point of it is keeping it with the belief that your team is going to perform and your team is going to go all the way. And I think that's what we did. So I think Caparros knew that he had faith and everyone else had faith in him. It was a combination of both, and that's what you need to have. You don't need to rely on one specific player or one specific system of play. And that's what he actually did in the game. He changed so many times the system. He knew he had that he would believe he would win this game. Yeah. It's all about the belief. It's all about in the mind. That's what I truly believe.
Yeah, so he got the players buy into the system, and I think he got that. I think he got that early on, and I think he got that from those first two matches, the loss away to Macedonia and the win at home against Estonia. I think he won their trust during those matches because I think he said to this group of players, which no Mkhitaryan and no Adamian for those first two matches, and I think he said to this team, it doesn't matter that we don't have Mkhitaryan. It doesn't matter that we don't have Adamian because we are a team. We're not
Completely.
a player. We are a team. And I think that's what had every player immediately buy into the system. I think players like Koryan, who were hesitant to join Armenia, who were a little bit skeptical, definitely feels a lot better now, right? Because suddenly, next Nations League, he's competing with Russia, who he played Russia, youth for Russia all those years.
Who he wanted to play for.
Yeah, who he wanted to play for. His options were Russia and Armenia. He ended up coming and playing for Armenia, and now he's at the same level, arguably, in the Nations League now as Russia. So I think
would agree.
Yeah, I think players like who came in a little bit skeptical are believers. But let's take a look at Don Joaquin, as I like to call him, break down his statistics during the Nations League. So far, he's only managed 6 matches. 2 of the friendlies that we were supposed to have during this time got canceled. So all 6 matches were competitive. His record so far, 3 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. We come 5 games undefeated at this point. The only game we lost was that first match away to Macedonia, 2-1. All 3 goals were penalties. We didn't play that well, and we still looked almost pretty much better than Macedonia did. So we had 9 goals scored during this contest. All 9 goals were scored by different players. No player scored more than once. We had 9 different goal scorers.
Team.
Yep, exactly.
There's no I in team.
Exactly. Goes back to that team mentality. We had no Henrik Mkhitaryan, our star player, for 4 of the 6 matches. The first
Never
2
heard of him.
Yeah. the first 2 matches he decided to not join the team. Last 2 he couldn't come because of COVID. Middle 2 he played both matches. We looked okay. We didn't look great. We didn't look bad though. We drew. We didn't lose.
Special.
Yeah, not special. He wasn't that game changer that I think Caparros expected him to be. And all 3 of the wins we had in this Nations League were without him.
Let that sink in.
Yeah, we didn't.
I'm enjoying the moment.
All of the commentators were saying Henrik missing Mkhitaryan, Henrik this, Henrik that. And don't get me wrong, I think we all love him. I think he's a fantastic player. He's like probably one of my favorite players of all time. But I think this isn't Henrik Mkhitaryan and friends anymore. That's not what Armenia is. And that's what big media outlets will still see it that way, but that's definitely not the case. And this is evident. I mean, we literally topped the group without him.
And I'm actually wondering if the opposing teams kind of like planned their whole game against Armenia counting on Mkhitaryan to play, right?
I think they did because if you look at the team sheets against Georgia, I think this is I was thinking about that this morning, and I'll bounce this right back to you guys to get your thoughts on this, but Georgia had an opportunity to bounce right back from losing that final. They could have played a full strength team, and they could have beaten Armenia. They could have played Estonia on the last match day, and they could have won that match. They would have topped the group. Easy. They would have topped the group. But I think they saw, Mkhitaryan's not going to be in the squad. We don't need we don't need our full strength to win this game, right?
They kind of rested their 2 star offensive players, but even then, I mean, their supposed starters, the replacements, were also pretty solid, and even then they couldn't do anything to a non-Mkhitaryan Armenia.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where a lot of these teams fell, and I think Macedonia had a similar thing where the coach said, okay, you know what, we hit our goal, we qualified for the Euros. He let a bunch of players go back to their clubs. He said, we don't need you guys. It's easy. We're taking on easy Estonia, easy Armenia. We'll win this group, and it didn't turn out that way, right, Chadens?
Not really. I think what it went, it wasn't as we expected, to be honest. But we're still happy with it. I mean,
I'm happy. Of course, I'm happy. But
it's
if you're a manager, I mean, you're a coach. So let's get this. Let's get Coach Chaden's mentality on this. If you're a coach and you have an opportunity to win a group, why would you rest starters?
definitely you wouldn't. But the way it happened with all these, with all that's going on, with COVID, what they had, I think we dealt with it well.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't rest the starters, of course. But you need to have faith in what you're going to do.
Exactly. And I think that's something Caparros did that the Georgian manager didn't do, that the Macedonian manager didn't do. I mean, of course, Macedonia has their successes. They qualified for Euros, can't take anything away from that. But when it comes solely to the Nations League, he instilled that belief in the team, and the team really bought into it, and they are buying into it. And it's only going to benefit us from here on out. But speaking of the players, let's start with Armen. Pick one player from Armenia's squad. Could be any player that is featured for Armenia during this Nations League campaign. Who was the player for you in the Nations League for Armenia?
Not Mkhitaryan. Okay, now seriously though, one player.
One player. Give me one player.
That's a toughie. Bato. Yeah, no question. Bato. Barastat I mean, hands down. No goals because he's a center back, so he kind of goes under the radar. But what a captain! He's my captain, no doubt.
Yeah, and he actually got a red card today in his match for Tambov. He got sent off at the 67th.
Well, it's not the national team, so
yeah, it doesn't matter.
My God.
Yeah, he was a commander from the back. He led what we could say is the most stable defensive line we've ever seen from Armenia, ever. And I think he did a fantastic job organizing the team. And I was very critical of him in that first match because he played very poorly. But something, I don't know what it was. Maybe it could have been a one-on-one he had with Caparros that we don't know about, that we aren't aware about. But something happened at some point, and his perspective.
He's living up to his potential.
Yeah.
And you know what? He is only 28 years old.
Exactly. And I think we have him good for a World Cup cycle. We have him good for another Euro cycle. We can definitely expect more out of him. And center back is a place that we are thin on. So as long as he could stay fit and healthy, he can benefit us. Chadens, one player for you throughout this whole campaign. Who was that star?
Caparros, even though he's not a player. It's because of what you said before, it's because of his training that this defense was transformed. And it's not only the defense. There were many disadvantages that we faced. And I think if he wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to go even with 2 wins maybe. I think 2 wins maximum we would get if it wasn't because of him. So those draws would have been losses. It's because of him. It's because of him we're actually proceeding. It's because of him that we have a team, and on to the next one, on to the World Cup.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and answer this one. So I was torn between 2 players. But the more I thought about it, the more the answer kind of became a little bit obvious to me. For me, the player of this tournament, of this Nations League campaign, was David Yurchenko, our goalkeeper. Previously,
So good.
in the past 7 or so years since Roman Berezovsky's retired, we haven't had that presence in the back. And I can say, I know I've said this like the past 2 episodes, this guy is a godsend. He is literally the best thing that has happened to this Armenia team because he's added a layer of stability. And like you said, Chadens, if this guy wasn't in goal, those 2 draws against Georgia and Estonia guaranteed would have been a loss. Guaranteed. Any other player we had, any other goalie we had, they would have let in goals. This guy single-handedly has done so much in not only preventing balls from hitting the back of the net, but also organizing that back line. I think Caparros has given him a sense of responsibility, and he's constantly yelling and badgering and directing his back line to always be in uniform, to always know where each other are, to always be aware of their surroundings. And he does not shy away from it. And I guarantee you that has helped. And he's another one of those players that he had the opportunity to play for Armenia years ago, but he didn't. He's 36 now. He's nearing the end of his career. He's a very, very well-experienced keeper. He played in the top flight of Russia almost his entire career. So this guy made 3 amazing saves in this Macedonia match alone. He cleared the ball several times. He had a lot of accurate passes. He he conceded 6 goals in 6 matches, so on average of 1 per game. However, he kept 2 clean sheets, and 3 of the goals he conceded were penalties. So this guy only conceded 3 goals from open play in 6 matches.
We gotta start having future goalies, though. I mean, I love Yurchenko and how he's like owning up to the team, but he's not going to be around forever. He's, as you said, he's 38, 36. I mean, players like Ivazov have to start living up to their potential.
I don't know if we're necessarily going to see that, but I know we have a couple of talents in the pipeline. One that I know of that I've spoken to him on a couple of occasions, Varujan Hovhannisyan. He's from San Diego, California. He currently is a youth goalkeeper for Rayo Vallecano in Spain.
Wow.
So I think he's someone maybe, hopefully, potentially. I know he's been in talks with the federation for representation. He wants to play for Armenia. His heart is not anywhere else. He's a very proud Armenian. So if I think the players are there, we also have a couple of players that play young keepers that play in Russia and Kazakhstan that are Armenian. So the talent is there. It's just having that personality that Yurchenko is bringing, that command of the back line. But we can't talk about players without talking a little bit about Tigran Barseghian. He had 1 goal and 4 assists in the UEFA Nations League. The most assisted player in all of the Nations League. All of them.
What a beast.
Most goals. 4 assists.
Animal.
Yeah. So, you know who was behind him on 3 assists? Lorenzo Insigne from Napoli. Yeah. A guy, I guarantee you, everyone who coaches and scouts who are looking at the statistics from this Nations League campaign are looking, how is this guy who plays in Kazakhstan have the most assists? That's a guarantee. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah, to be fair, Astana is not a bad team, as we were saying in the last podcast. I mean, they're play Europa League. They're, say, for instance, in the Russian Premier League, Astana could totally play.
Yeah. I'm sure they can, but again, people don't think of elite football doesn't come to mind when you say Kazakhstan Premier League.
Yeah,
but before we move on, quick shout out to the defensive line, this defensive midfield rather that we had in this campaign. I think Angulo was very solid. I think Udo was great, and I think Artak Grigoryan exceeded all of our expectations.
Hero.
And without him, I don't think we would have won these matches.
Hero. He's a hero.
Yeah.
A small shout out as well to Sevilla. If there are any fans or Sevilla fans or any Spanish, they posted on Twitter for Caparros. So thank you to them if anyone from Sevilla is actually listening to us.
Gracias, Sevilla. Gracias.
Yeah, Sevilla, of course, where Joaquin Caparros had spent a lot of his time as a manager on a couple of occasions. He was the sporting director there as well before coming and leading Armenia. So thank you, Sevilla. You are now our favorite team in Spain officially until Varujan starts starting for Rayo Vallecano. Then they'll be our favorite team. Anyway, so looking ahead, Armenia topped the group, 11 points. Second place, Macedonia with 9 points, Georgia on 7, Estonia on 3. Armenia is promoted to Division B in the UEFA Nations League. This was Armenia's first time ever winning a competitive group. We are now confirmed top seed in pot 5 for World Cup qualifiers. We thought we were going to get into pot 4 with a win. Some other results that we needed to go our way didn't go our way. So unfortunately, we are in pot 5 for World Cup qualifiers. That means we are going to have a heavier group. I would prefer a group of 6 teams or 5 teams, but we'll get into that a little bit later in a few weeks whenever the World Cup qualifying draws happens.
Yeah.
Armenia is now undefeated in 5 games, as I had previously mentioned, 3 wins and 2 draws. Has never happened in our history before, so that's a first. We had 9 different goal scorers during this campaign. Again, unprecedented. We usually have to rely on whoever's up top to score our goals, or Henrik. But we're looking into the future now. What does topping the Nations League group mean? What do these results mean for the near future of Armenia and for the distant future of Armenia? Charents?
Pretty big things in simple words. Well, we're going to have the World Cup, as you mentioned, so it's a big push for us. I think there's a long road ahead. We should hope for the best.
Yeah, and like you had mentioned, World Cup qualifiers around the corner. Winning the group actually means that we have a shot at an alternative path to qualification. We have about 11 teams ahead of us that need to get first or second place in their groups, and we would have an automatic playoff berth. Now, that's not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. We can break that down again in the World Cup qualifiers episode that we'll be doing. But it's an alternative path. It's an opportunity. But we just won the Nations League group, and we're moving on to League B. League B has a lot more attention on it than League C and D.
Definitely.
So we're looking at more exposure for our players. We're looking at our players being broadcasted on international television more often because we're going to be playing against better opposition. And now that some League A teams have dropped down to League B, we have some big heavy hitters in League B now, and Armenia is going to be in that mix. More TV time, more eyes on them, more coaches, more managers, more scouts. Armenia is going to be getting a lot more exposure. So, other than that, we're also looking at higher competition. Armen, we are going to be facing some way bigger teams. How is that going to benefit us?
In many ways, but one thing, I mean, Division B is like the real deal, so we cannot slip up. We cannot make any more silly mistakes. I mean, this season, luckily we didn't. We saw a lot of defensive stability and responsibility. It was a very serious team all throughout the season, even when with COVID, lack of practice, and most of all the war that hit us. Everybody suffered COVID, so that's not an excuse. But the war in October plus Heno in the squad, I'd say the squad looked kind of pale, but the rest of the season, we were fair winners of this group with no slip-ups, no mistakes in defense. Now we gotta step up our game as we're gonna step up in the division to Division B. So yeah, we gotta be very careful. I mean, Division B is very dangerous.
Let me run through some of the teams that are currently or that will be in Division B in the next Nations League.
Oh
I'm
boy.
already scared that I'm.
So
Oh,
we're looking
boy.
at Group 1. Austria won the group, so Austria is going to League A. But we have Norway and Romania. They're staying in Group B. Northern Ireland relegated down to C. Czech Republic won the Group 2. They're going up to A. Scotland and Israel staying in Group B. Slovakia, who we have wonderful memories with, they're going down to C. So no, we can't face Slovakia. Group 3, Hungary won the group. So they're getting promoted. Russia
This group.
and Serbia are staying.
Ooh.
Those are humongous teams.
Yeah.
Relegated from Group 3, Turkey.
Dun, dun, dun.
Group 4, Wales got promoted. So Finland and Republic of Ireland, our arch nemesis, are staying in Group B, and Bulgaria, in my opinion, surprisingly relegated down to C. So, and then from League A, we have Bosnia, Iceland, Sweden, and as of now, Switzerland, but it can change because of something between Switzerland and Ukraine. Those 4 teams are relegated down. So Bosnia, we've played them, we've beaten them. Iceland, amazing team. Sweden, amazing team. Switzerland, amazing team. So we're talking, we are going to be coming up against some good teams.
Heavyweights.
But it's not a bad thing.
No.
Because
Plus,
it's not,
we can beat half of them.
we can, and we will. And I'm telling you, and we will because we have proper management, and no more Gibraltar away. That's done. That's done. The days of Gibraltar, the days of Macedonia away are done. The days of Gibraltar away are done. No more Liechtenstein. It's over. You know, we have leveled up. But another big takeaway we could take from getting promoted is that Armenian players, diasporan Armenian players who play abroad, are going to be more inclined to play for us.
This is your call. Whoever is listening, this is your call.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Tikhnisians, the Avanesians, who are ethnically Armenian, who are born in another country because they're Armenian diasporans, such as ourselves, who play for youth in other countries, like the 2 I had mentioned, play for Russian youth. This is an opportunity for them to look at Armenia not as a lesser anymore, because that's not what we are. You know, we are going to be the small fish in League B. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're going to win League B. I fully don't expect us to win our group, no matter what our group is. As long as we're not relegated, I think we can consider that a success in League B.
Definitely. As a first time going in there, I think we can consider that a definite huge pass.
Yeah. And I think another huge attraction for these players is going to be the philosophy and the system and the manager. So right now we're looking at a Joaquin Caparros who has a great philosophy. He has a system. He has a plan to succeed, and he already has one case study on it, why his decision making, why his management is going to be beneficial for Armenia now, in the near future, and in the long term. So hopefully those types, or this winning this Nations League group, is going to have much more long-term effects for Armenia, because I hope it attracts more players and makes these diasporan Armenians want to play for Armenia.
Because that's a definite huge,
it's what I call a virtuous cycle.
Explain.
Explain. As opposed to there's a vicious circle when a bad thing leads to a bad thing, and so on and so forth. This is the exact opposite. A virtuous circle. Win creates win creates win. Winning is a habit, and if these results come with a process, which it's exactly what's happening, it's long-term virtue.
Yeah, exactly. So we are going to start getting to the habit of winning. Hopefully, we have a successful World Cup qualifiers campaign. We will get into that, obviously, and we will also have a very lengthy conversation, I think, on future players that can play for Armenia, that have the option to play for Armenia, and that I think are maybe looking at it a little bit closer than they were before because of the recent successes. So I think it's safe to say that concludes the UEFA Nations League. That concludes our episode today of Football Kentron. We are very excited. We are very happy. We are very proud of this Armenia team and everything that they have accomplished so far. We
are group winners.
We are group winners.
Yeah.
But with that comes a lot of responsibility and comes a lot of expectations. And
Definitely.
I know the manager knows that. I know the players know that. But I think we have a cause for celebration. I don't think it's one of those moments that we could say, no, we can't celebrate. We got to look on to the next thing. We have a little bit of time until the group stage of World Cup qualifiers start, so we can really enjoy this. And I think I'm correct in saying that, and Joaquin Caparros had confirmed this in his press conference, this win was for every single Armenian because of the difficult year that every Armenian has had. Everything that's happened, Armenians in Armenia, in Artsakh, around the world. This was one of the very, very few positive lights to come out. But
you're gonna make me emotional, bro.
I'm just saying. At the end of the day, there's two things these people can't take away from us. One, the fact that we are Armenian and we always will be. And two, that we're group winners, baby! Woo!
Yeah.
Group winners. Wonderful, wonderful, fantastic. Well, that's going to conclude today's Football Kentron. Charents, Armen, thank you for joining me today. Theo, thank you for your future contributions you're going to give us. And that's it. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.